Are you steering your own life, or are you really just a passenger watching your emotions drive everything? Most people wake up and let their mood decide their destiny. If they feel happy, they work. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel afraid, they back away. But let me reveal a harsh truth. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. Real freedom is not being controlled by your emotions. If you're still acting based on fleeting inspiration, you're not free. You're a slave to impulses and to outside influences. Imagine a lighthouse standing firm in the middle of the ocean. It doesn't wait for the sea to calm down before it starts shining. It doesn't care how high the waves are out there or how hard the wind is blowing. Its job is to maintain a steady beam of light within. Your success is the same way. It doesn't come from noise, but from the ability to hold to your principles even when emotional storms are screaming at their fiercest. In this video, I will guide you through 9 principles to shatter the chains of emotion and reclaim ultimate inner power. You will understand why mastering yourself is the only way to truly master your life. And remember, you should stay until the end of the video because principle number 9 is the crucial key, the thing that turns you into someone extremely difficult to defeat in any game of life. Do you want to master yourself or be led for the rest of your life? That decision lies in your very next action right now. Principle 1, break free from the chains of the emotional slave. Imagine your life as a luxurious carriage. You are the owner of that carriage, but instead of gripping the reins tightly, you choose to sit in the back and let the horse's named emotions run freely in whatever direction they want. When the horse named excitement runs, you move forward. When the horse named fatigue stops, you stand still. And when the horse named fear goes wild, you plunge into a ravine. You see, most people live as slaves to their own emotions. We often confuse freedom with indulgence. You think you are free when you get to sleep in an extra hour, when you get to eat whatever you crave, or when you abandon your work just because your mood is bad today. But listen to me, that is not freedom. That is surrender. If you can't control what happens inside your own mind, you will forever be controlled by what happens outside. The greatest enemy isn't in competitors or the economy. It lies in your own weakness in managing your emotions. I remember an old friend back in the 1970 seconds in California. He was incredibly talented, someone with business ideas that could change an entire industry. But he was a prisoner of something called mood. On sunny days, when he felt energized, he worked like a machine. But all it took was one rejection from a customer or a gloomy, rainy morning, and he would sink into discouragement. He would turn off his phone, stretch out on the sofa, and say he needed time to find inspiration again. What was the result? 10 years later, when we met again, he was still standing in the exact same place, still the same ideas, but a life full of the cracks of unfinished things. He let short-lived emotional waves sink the ship of his career. The difference between a successful person and a failed one is not that successful people never feel tired or afraid. They get discouraged too, but the difference is that they act based on commitment, not based on mood. Treat your emotions like a 5-year-old child. You love it, you listen to it, but you absolutely never let it drive your car on the highway. Self-mastery is when you are clear-headed enough to say to that emotional child, I hear you, but now is not the time, we have work to do. I made a similar mistake when I was young. I used to wait for inspiration to knock on my door before I started working. And then I realized that inspiration is a very unreliable friend. If I only worked when I felt like it, I would never accomplish anything great. Success is not an accident. It is a chain of correct decisions repeated every day, no matter how you feel. And that is only the beginning. Once you have identified the chains of emotion, you will face an even harsher truth. Why is it that we know what is right, yet sometimes we still stand frozen in place? Principle 2, the brutal gap between knowing and doing. There is a greatest distance in this world, not the distance from the ground up to the stars, but the distance from the mind down to the hands. That is the tragedy of how we know very clearly what we should do, yet we cannot force ourselves to do it. Most people live as slaves to emotion. They have all kinds of plans. They read all kinds of books about success. They know exercise is good. They know saving money is wise, and they know kindness will open new doors. But then when dawn comes, they still choose the old path, the old habits, and the same old stagnation. They know what's right, but they don't do it. Why is this principle so important? Because knowledge without action is only a burden of regret. The world doesn't pay for what you know. The world only pays for what you actually do. Knowing what's right but not doing it doesn't just keep you stuck. It also silently destroys your self-respect. Every time you say you will start a new habit and then break your promise to yourself, a part of your inner belief dies. You begin to look down on yourself, and that is the beginning of total failure. I remember the story of a young entrepreneur I met in Chicago in the late 1980 seconds. He could present on every modern management theory of that time. He knew every number, every strategy, and every mistake to avoid. But when I looked at his business, everything was chaos. Employees left, customers complained, and debt piled up. When I asked why he didn't apply what he knew, he just stayed silent. The truth is, he was too busy knowing to ever truly do the small, disciplined daily tasks. He waited for a perfect moment to execute a grand plan, while in reality, success only required him to do the right things consistently. Look at everyday reality around us. An office worker knows that if he spends 1 extra hour each night learning more about his expertise, he will have a chance at a promotion after 1 year. But instead, he chooses to watch TV because he feels tired after a day of work. A business person knows that calling to take care of existing customers is the key to keeping revenue stable, but he procrastinates because he fears rejection. We often trade the price of long-term success for a little short-term comfort. The most vivid image of this stagnation is a sailboat standing in the middle of the open sea but never raising its sails. You can have the most modern ship, you can have the most accurate map, and you know which way the wind is blowing, but if you refuse to pull the sails up, that ship is just a piece of wood rotting over time. Knowing the direction of the wind is knowledge, but raising the sails is action, and only action takes you to shore. I once looked back at myself in the early years of my career. I had stacks of notebooks filled with philosophies and formulas for success from my mentors. I took pride in knowing more than the people around me, but my life only truly changed when I stopped reading one more new page and started doing one page I had read the month before. I realized that an ounce of action is worth more than tons of theory. When you stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility for what you know but haven't done that is when you truly grow up. The difference between a great life and an ordinary life often lies only in a few small decisions we make every day. If you want to change your life, close the gap between knowledge and action. Don't wait until you feel ready, because readiness is an illusion of emotion. Just do it because it is the right thing that needs to be done. But remember, to do that, you need a tool more powerful than willpower alone. You need something many people often mistake for punishment, but in truth, it is the highest form of inner power. The next principle will completely change how you see restriction and freedom. Principle 3, discipline is not punishment. The biggest mistake most people make when they hear the word discipline is that they see it as a punishment. They view discipline as a narrow iron cage that takes away their comfort and freedom. But let me change your perspective. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. Discipline is the guardian of freedom. Without discipline, you are merely a slave to momentary impulses. Discipline is not a punishment you must endure. It is a gift you give to your future self. Why is this principle so important that it can change the course of your entire life? Because all of us must endure one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is that the pain of discipline weighs only a few ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. When you choose discipline, you are choosing to pay a very small price now in order to buy an enormous reward later. On the other hand, when you avoid discipline in search of easy comfort, you are unknowingly accumulating a massive debt that life will eventually collect through failure and remorse. I remember the story of a writer I once knew in New York in the mid-1980 seconds. He always dreamed of writing a novel that would last a lifetime, but he hated the constraints of a serious work schedule. He told me that discipline would kill creativity and that he needed to feel free in order to write. For many years, he only sat down at his desk when he felt inspired. The result was that after 10 years, he still hadn't managed to finish even a single chapter. Meanwhile, another friend of mine who did not have as much natural talent disciplined himself to write exactly 500 words every morning, regardless of how he felt. After 10 years, that person had 5 published books. Discipline does not kill talent. It simply creates a channel through which talent can flow into the world. Look at everyday reality, from financial management to health. The discipline of saving $100 a month is not a deprivation of your shopping pleasure. It is a guarantee of a peaceful old age. The discipline of refusing unhealthy food is not self-torture. It is respect for the only biological machine that allows you to fulfill every dream you have. We often focus on what we must give up right now and forget what we will gain in the long term. The clearest metaphor for discipline is forging a sword in a furnace. To become sharp and strong, the sword must endure intense heat and painful hammer blows. If the sword could speak, it might complain that it is being abused. But in reality, the blacksmith is not punishing it. He is upgrading it from a lump of scrap iron into a priceless treasure. Without the discipline of fire and hammer, that piece of iron would remain lifeless and easily broken by harsh reality. Looking back on my time working with my mentor Shof, I learned that discipline begins with the smallest things. If you cannot discipline yourself to make your bed every morning, you will never have enough strength to manage a large corporation. I once thought I needed to do something great to change my life, but the truth is that my life changed when I began practicing small but consistent disciplines. Your self-respect increases every time you complete a discipline, no matter how small. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. It is the inner strength that allows you to do what needs to be done even when you don't want to do it. If you want to live a life that many people dream of, you must be willing to accept a level of discipline that few people can endure. But do not stop at seeing discipline as a tool. You must understand that when discipline becomes a solid habit, it transforms into a far greater source of energy. It is no longer forced. It is the moment when you touch true human power. The next principle will show you the terrifying strength of mastering your inner world. Principle 4, discipline is inner power. Discipline is not just an action. It is a form of power. It is inner power that allows you to command yourself and carry out that command. Most people out there try to control the world, control their boss, control the economy, or control the people around them, yet they fail miserably at controlling themselves. Remember, this true mastery does not begin with controlling others. It begins with controlling the person you see in the mirror every morning. Why is this the ultimate source of power? Because when you have discipline, you build the muscle of will. Every time you force yourself to wake up on time, every time you complete a report while exhausted, you are adding more energy to your reservoir of power. This strength gives you an intimidating calmness in the face of life's turbulence. When storms hit, the undisciplined person panics and falls apart, while the person with inner power stands firm because they know they can control their own reactions. I remember a seminar I once held in the 1,990 seconds. A man came up to me and said he felt powerless in life, that everything was beyond his control. I asked him a simple question: did you make your bed this morning? He was surprised and replied, "What does that have to do with anything?" I answered, "It has everything to do with it." If you cannot master something as small as tidying your sleeping space, how can you have the power to manage a team or lead a family? Discipline in small things is where inner power is born. In real life, look at the difference between someone who has a spending plan and someone who spends impulsively. The financially disciplined person may appear restricted, but in reality, they are the one with power. They have the power to invest, the power to help others, and the power to retire early. Meanwhile, the impulsive spender appears free, but in truth, they are steadily losing power to bills and debt. Inner power is the ability to say no to short-term desires in order to say yes to long-term achievements. The most accurate metaphor for inner power is a massive hydroelectric dam. If water flows freely, it is just a chaotic stream that can cause floods. But when we build a dam, we discipline the water, forcing it through narrow channels and turbines. What happens? A tremendous source of energy is created to light up an entire city. The constraint of the dam is not the imprisonment of the water. It is the only way to transform its strength into useful power. I learned that inner power is not something you are born with. It is something you must train every day. Each day is a small battle between reason and laziness. When you win that battle, you are stronger for the next one. Never underestimate the power of a small habit maintained consistently. That momentum itself creates a force that makes you unstoppable. Once you possess this power, you will recognize a great formula that I always share in my lectures. It is a simple formula, yet it completely changes how we position ourselves in society. It is the secret of the connection between the inner world and external reality. If you feel that these lessons truly resonate with you and awaken a desire for change within you, take a second to press the subscribe button. It is not just an act of supporting the channel, it is a commitment you make to yourself to pursue the journey of self-mastery every day at Jim Rohn Treasures. We are not just learning philosophies, we are building a life worth living together. Press subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single step on this journey. Principle 5, the ultimate formula: master yourself to master your life. There is a truth that took me many years to fully understand. Your outer world is always an exact reflection of what is happening in your inner world. If your life is a mess, your finances unstable, and your relationships broken, it is not the fault of the economy, nor the government, nor your boss. It is the direct result of your failure to master yourself. Self-mastery is the master key. Once you turn that key, every door in life opens automatically. Why is this formula so decisive? Because you do not get what you want in life, You only get what you deserve through the person you become. If you want your income to change, you must first change your skills and discipline. If you want a happier family, you must first master your temper and ego. You cannot change the seasons, you cannot change the direction of the wind, but you can absolutely change yourself to adapt and rise. Self-mastery is the only foundation that allows you to stand firm on every terrain of life. I remember the early days when I first met my great mentor, Shof. At the time, I constantly complained about how expensive everything was and how low my income was. He looked me straight in the eyes and said a sentence that changed my life forever. Jim, don't wish things were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. He taught me that if I wanted to master my financial destiny, I had to master my work habits and thinking. When I began disciplining myself to study and work seriously, something miraculous happened. My life began to change in exactly the way I had changed on the inside. Look at the example of a mid-level manager in a corporation. He can spend all day complaining that the company is unfair. But if he decides to master himself, starting by arriving at work 15 minutes earlier, sharpening his communication skills, and completing every task with excellence, what will happen? Whether that company promotes him or not, his value has increased. And once personal value increases, the market will naturally come and pay the corresponding price. He has mastered his life by mastering his own attitude and productivity. The deepest metaphor for this principle is the image of a gardener. Your life is a garden. If you master yourself, you will wake up early to pull weeds, plant good seeds, and water every day. Then the harvest will naturally appear. You cannot stand in front of a weed-filled garden and scream for sweet fruit. Weeds are bad habits, laziness, and negative reactions. Only when you pick up the hoe of discipline to master your inner garden can you master the harvest of your life. I realize that the greatest awakening comes when we stop blaming the world and begin taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens to us. When you stop being a victim and start being the owner of yourself, you will feel a strange power flowing through you. You no longer fear external turbulence because you know the captain inside you is strong enough to steer the ship through any storm. Life rewards the effort of self-mastery with a future of brilliance and freedom. And when you have finally taken hold of your own reins, another miracle occurs. That is the formation of a rock-solid block of belief. Once you believe in yourself through even the smallest disciplines, no judgment or obstacle from the outside world can shake you. The next principle will show you the power of an unshakable mind. Principle 6. When you believe in yourself, the world cannot shake you. True confidence does not come from empty affirmations shouted in the mirror, nor does it come from other people praising how talented you are. Real confidence is built on one single foundation, the belief that you can do what you say you will do. When you master yourself, you begin to keep promises to yourself. And when you keep promises to yourself long enough, you develop a kind of inner power that no criticism, no judgment, no failure can ever shake. Why is this confidence so important? Because most people out there live on the approval of others. They are like dry leaves in the wind, praised, and they feel happy, criticized, and they collapse. But once you have trained personal discipline, you no longer need the outside world to define your value. You know who you are because you know what you have overcome to gain that self-control. A person who has conquered their own laziness at 5 a.m. will never be destroyed by the sarcasm of an onlooker. I remember a difficult period when I was just starting my speaking career. At that time, many people doubted what I shared. They said my philosophy was too simple or that I did not have enough credentials to teach success. If I had been someone who lived on emotion and public approval, I would have quit long ago. But I did not waver. Why? Because I had proven myself to myself through results. I applied those disciplines to my own life. I changed my finances from zero, and I mastered my attitude in the face of adversity. That belief was forged through action, not words, so no one could take it away from me. Look at the reality of someone starting a diet or exercise routine. In the first week, friends may mock them or try to pull them into parties. Without self-mastery, they will waver and compromise. But if they are disciplined enough to say no once, twice, then 10 times, something miraculous happens. Not only do they become healthier, but their confidence skyrockets. They begin to believe they have power over their own destiny. At that point, other people's words become nothing more than passing wind because they have built a solid fortress of belief within. The metaphor for this principle is a massive ancient tree with roots buried deep in the earth. The branches may sway in the wind, but the trunk never moves. Those roots are the silent disciplines you practice every day when no one is watching. The more discipline you have, the deeper the roots grow. And when the roots are deep enough, no matter how strong the storm is, it only makes the tree sturdier. People who lack self-mastery are like weeds. One careless step is enough to crush them. I realize that the highest price of lacking discipline is not financial failure, but the erosion of belief in yourself. Every time you say you will do something and then fail to do it, you tell your subconscious, I am not trustworthy. And when you do not trust yourself, you desperately seek trust from others. On the other hand, when you master yourself, you become a self-generated source of energy. You walk differently, speak differently, and face the world with the posture of a winner. This confidence is the magnet that attracts all opportunities. And once you have this solid belief, you will realize the next beautiful truth: success is no longer something you have to chase. It will begin to find you as a natural consequence of who you have become. Principle 7. Success is not something to chase. It is an inevitable result. There is a common mistake I see everywhere. People spend their entire lives chasing success. They chase money, chase status, chase recognition, like a dog chasing its own tail. The faster they run, the farther the goal moves away. But listen carefully to this. Success is not something you chase. Success is something you attract by the person you become. When you master yourself, success stops being a distant goal and becomes an inevitable result, an unavoidable outcome of inner development. Why does this principle completely change the game? Because when you focus on mastering yourself, you are focusing on the cause, while success is merely the effect. Most people want the effect but are too lazy to build the cause. If you train discipline, focus, and emotional control, you are upgrading your personal value to a higher level. And this world operates on a very fair rule: the market does not pay for your needs, it pays for the value you bring. When your value increases through self-mastery, success will naturally find its way to your door. I remember my days working with sales agents in the 1,980 seconds. Some people constantly complained that customers were too difficult or that the product was not good enough. They exhausted themselves chasing every small deal, but others used that time to master themselves. They trained their communication skills, disciplined themselves to study customer psychology, and most importantly, mastered an optimistic attitude. After a while, customers began to seek them out. They no longer chased success because they had become a magnet for it. They understood that changing themselves was far more important than trying to change customers or circumstances. Look at financial investing as an example. A person who lacks self-mastery will always chase market hype buying when excited and selling in fear. They pursue profit but usually end up with losses. In contrast, a self-mastered person is disciplined, in learning patient, in waiting for opportunities, and able to control greed and fear. Profit for them is not luck, it is an inevitable result of a disciplined mind. Financial success is simply a number that reflects the level of self-mastery they have over money and emotions. The clearest metaphor for this principle is planting a flower garden to attract butterflies. If you chase butterflies, they will fly away and you will be exhausted. But if you master yourself and take care of your garden, plant fragrant flowers, and keep the soil fertile, butterflies will naturally come and stay. Tending the garden is your discipline and inner mastery. The butterflies are success, money, and great opportunities. Do not chase butterflies. Build a beautiful garden. I realized that when I stopped worrying about how much money I was making and started caring about who I was becoming, my life took a major turn. I learned that income rarely exceeds personal development. If you want more, you must become more. Self-mastery is the process of transforming yourself from an average person into a high-value individual. And once you have value, the world will never allow you to be underpaid. Sustainable success is never an accident. It is a design of discipline. And when you achieve those accomplishments, you will discover a reward even greater than money or fame. It is a deep inner feeling that nothing can replace a gift reserved only for those who dare to master themselves. Principle 8, the greatest reward is self-respect. There is a reward that money cannot buy, fame cannot create, and no one else can give you. That reward is self-respect. When you master yourself, the greatest achievement is not the balance in your bank account or the certificates on your wall. The true reward is the calm pride you feel when you look in the mirror each morning and know you have defeated the old lazy version of yourself. Self-respect is the strongest foundation of lasting happiness. Why is self-respect the ultimate reward? Because all external pleasures can fade, but the way you feel about yourself stays with you for life. If you have all the wealth in the world but gained it by compromising your principles or through indulgence and deceit, your soul will always feel empty. On the other hand, when you maintain discipline, when you force yourself to do hard things instead of easy ones, you are building an invaluable inner asset. Self-respect is the quiet inner voice that says, I am proud of you because you did the right thing even when no one was watching. I remember a man I met in Dallas many years ago. He made a lot of money through tricks and shortcuts. He had luxury cars and a large house, but when he sat across from me, his eyes were full of unease. He confessed that he could not sleep well because he knew his true self was a coward in the face of temptation. Meanwhile, I knew ordinary workers who disciplined themselves to live honestly, save carefully, and always keep their word. They may not have been as wealthy, but they possessed a confidence and peace that the man desperately wanted. Self-mastery gives you a form of currency more valuable than dollars: peace of mind. Look at physical training. The moment you complete a hard workout before sunrise, the reward is not just bigger muscles months later. The immediate reward is self-respect. You feel valuable because you did not surrender to the warm bed. That self-respect spreads into how you work, how you treat your family, and how you face hardship. When you respect yourself, the world begins to respect you. When you repeatedly break promises to yourself, you create a hole in your soul that material things can never fill. The metaphor for self-respect is an invisible suit of armor. Every act of self-mastery forges another piece of steel. Each time you refuse a bad habit or complete an unfinished task, the armor becomes thicker and brighter. It protects you from insults, doubt, and social pressure. A person with high self-respect is like a knight in shining armor, walking through life with head held high because there is nothing to be ashamed of within. I learned that success without self-respect is merely a glamorous failure. Do not strive only to have more. Strive to be more. When you master yourself to become better, each day you accumulate personal pride, the most powerful fuel that can take you farther than anyone else. Self-respect is the source of strength that makes you fearless before the outside world. And when you reach the highest level of self-respect, through absolute self-mastery, you transform into a force so powerful that nothing can stop you. That is when you enter the final principle, the state of a person who cannot be defeated by any adversity in life. Principle 9, the person who masters themselves is undefeatable. We have gone on a long journey to understand discipline, inner power, and self-respect. But this is the pinnacle of all philosophy. The person who masters themselves is the hardest person in the world to defeat. The world may take your money, take your position, and even take your health. But if you have mastered your inner world, the world can never take your resilience. A person who has conquered themselves no longer has any external enemy that can make them afraid. Why is this an unbeatable state? Because adversity only has power when it finds weakness and chaos within you. When a storm arrives, it sweeps away whatever is loose and poorly rooted. But for a person who has trained absolute self-control, adversity is not a disaster, it is merely a test of endurance. A self-mastered person does not wait for the world to become kinder in order to be happy. They decide their attitude before they step out the door each morning. This ability to self-determine their inner state is what turns them into an impenetrable fortress. I often look back at great examples throughout history, people who stood firm in the harshest conditions imaginable. They did not win through weapons or political power, they won through self-mastery. When pushed to the edge, they still controlled their thinking, their hope, and their character. That is a form of power no army can ever conquer. You can imprison the body of a self-mastered person, but you can never imprison their will. In everyday life, this image appears in those who remain calm when everything around them is collapsing. When markets crash, when companies go bankrupt, or when relationships fall apart, a person without self-control will collapse and surrender to fate. But the self-mastered person will stand up, brush the dust off their clothes, and ask, what is the lesson here? What is my next step? They are not defeated because they do not allow themselves to be defeated from within. The greatest victory is not over others, but over one's own discouragement. The final metaphor I want to give you is the image of a diamond. A diamond begins as an ordinary piece of graphite, but through extreme pressure and intense heat over millions of years, it transforms into the hardest substance on the planet. Self-mastery and discipline are that pressure and heat. They compress all your weaknesses, fears, and laziness until only a clear, unbreakable crystal remains. You cannot shatter a diamond with a single hammer strike. You can only use it to cut through every other obstacle. I realize that when you reach this level, you no longer fight for success. You fight from the position of a successful person. You no longer fear the future because you know that no matter what the future brings, you have already prepared a version of yourself strong enough to face it. Self-mastery is not a destination. It is a lifelong process of refinement that keeps the diamond within you polished and shining. We have explored together 9 principles to master yourself and achieve true freedom, from breaking free from emotional chains to becoming an undefeatable person. But remember this, everything I have shared becomes meaningless if it remains only theory in your mind. Life does not change through what you hear. Life changes through what you do. You are standing at a crossroads. One path is wide and easy, where you continue to let emotions lead and accept an ordinary life full of regret. The other path is narrower and steeper, demanding discipline and sacrifice, but leading to the highest form of self-respect and true freedom. Do you want to master yourself or accept being led for the rest of your life? The answer is not in your words, it is in your very next action when this video ends. It might be turning off the computer and starting to work, reading a single page of a book, or simply keeping the smallest promise you make to yourself. I truly appreciate you staying until the end of this video. If you feel ready for the journey of self-mastery, comment the word master below to affirm your commitment. Do not forget to like and share this video with the people you care about, because these principles might be the lifeline they are searching for. Subscribe to the Jim Rohn Treasures channel so we can continue walking together on the path of unlocking the unlimited potential of human beings. You and I both have one gift today. Use it wisely. I wish you a day full of discipline and strength. Goodbye, and I will see you again in the next lessons.